It is that time again. That time to completely overuse a soundbite from an episode that was, more than 20 years ago?
It is time to do what we have been doing.
And that time is right now. Welcome to the second ever Americans Watching the Footy Gather Round preview. And that's one.
Ethan and Benjamin Castle are Americans. Watching the footy.
Liam Ryan saying, kick it my way, I want to jump over the pack, and here he comes! Ryan!
This is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman!
Got the handball off to Myers. Myers looking for the lead of Stengel. Gee, they're good. Gee, they're sharp. Razzle dazzle Rioli.
Oh, who else? McDonald!
From inside the centre square. Boys kick the goal. Boys kick the goal. From inside the centre. Fat. I can't believe
that. By the way, you messed up the quote. It's that time is every day.
I know, but it's not every day that you are able to do a Gather Round preview. I believe it's necessary for us to just cram that in way.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to just play like the shitpost one real quick?
Yeah, I think that suffices. We'll see how many times I actually use this sound.
We're at 3 right now.
And much more to come.
Yeah, so... Oh, we actually have some recon to do, because on the last round, we never got around to the nominees.
You mean retcon?
Oh.
Recon is like...
Okay.
Secret surveillance.
Have I been doing that wrong the whole time? Okay. Anyway, we need to get our mark and goal nominees from the prior round. And I also realized after the fact that there were a couple other main character nominees that we should have considered before just bestowing it upon the entire Melbourne Football Club.
So I guess we should start with the Mark of the Year nominees. On Saturday, Liam Stalker took one of the center square over Jade Gresham. On Sunday, Tyler Brockman in the midfield. That one was more so over Bailey J. Williams.
Yeah, and Sam Darcy was defending him, kind of, but yeah, it was definitely over Williams.
And then Easter Monday, Mitch Lewis in a pack, a ball that was probably intended for Mabior Chol, but Lewis went up and grabbed over Sam DeConing. I'm inclined to still go Brockman.
Yeah, I think ranking them, I think it's Brockman 1. Actually, the more I watch this Stalker one, the more I like it, but I think it goes Brockman, then Stalker, then Lewis. Our Goal of the Week nominees, Jake Stringer with his go-ahead goal with a little under 6 minutes left. It's just a set shot from right around 50. Kind of tells you that there were slim pickings this week.
I like the other two, though.
Yeah, you had Caleb Windsor's first career goal where Bailey Fritsch couldn't mark, but you got a handball from Jack Billings, kind of cut around a couple dudes and kicked on the run from 50. But it was a really cool first goal.
It reminded me of Jason Horne-Francis against the Saints last year without the cut to the loading dock.
And then you had Cody Waitman's dribbler from nearly 50. Or I don't know if you can call it a dribbler. I think it bounced too high to do that. I guess it was more of a bouncer. But it was on the run. Brady Hoff was close to him.
Hoff had a really down game this past week. I know that for a while we've said Waitman, but the more and more I see it, the more I think Windsor's going to win this.
I will not be bothered by either of those winning. I think my vote is Waitman because in the moment, it was just like, I had more of a, wow, that's a really badass goal.
And also like, holy shit, something happened in this game.
Although with Windsor, maybe it's just because it was such an important part of the game. I was thinking more about the importance of it to go up by 14 or whatever it was. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at it differently because of that. But yeah, I won't be bothered. Both Mark and Goal have like 2 deserving picks this week. Thinking back on it, for main character, there were probably a couple more nominees than I had really thought about. As of the episode, our main character was just the entire Melbourne Football Club. But after thinking about it, I think there were 2 other candidates, Chris Hemsworth and the guy with one hand.
I think Hemsworth would probably win out over the one-hand guy because, I mean, the one-hand guy was just one part of a very crowded group of fans that was heckling Ben Brown, whereas Hemsworth was really pointed out for being Chris Hemsworth, and I think the broadcaster confused him with his brother somehow.
I don't know. I didn't even recognize him. I just knew, oh, it's a famous guy. And then like they said who it was.
I am actually like genuinely surprised that you did not recognize Chris Hemsworth.
I don't recognize actors.
I thought you would just know him for being a Bulldogs fan.
No.
Wow.
For me to recognize you, if you're an actor, you got to be someone I really like or someone really big time.
Well, probably someone you hate as well.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, because I'm feeling like, for example, and this is crossed into music, but like when Ed Sheeran was at a Saints game, it's like right away, it's like, I knew that was Ed Sheeran.
Did you recognize Luke Combs when he was at the Collingwood-Brisbane game last year?
I don't know if I did initially. I mean, I know Luke Combs. I know a few of his songs, not just Beer Never Broke My Heart, but there's When It Rains, It Pours. I know he did the cover of Fast Car, but I don't think of that one really. Let's see, what else? When It Rains, It Pours is probably just the one other. Oh, Cold As You, that's another. But yeah, there were other main character candidates that I should have given consideration to.
Are we going to leave it up to the masses then?
I'd like to.
Okay, we can do that. In the meantime, though, I think we actually do need to get into the fixtures.
Yeah, because it looks like we've got a pretty good set here.
And we actually have 9 games. I guess
it does unfortunately mean an overlap.
I find it really interesting how they decided to set this up, similarly to last year where you can't really attend all the games at once, even without the overlap, just because of the tight windows between games at different grounds and just the fact that,
I mean, Norwood is close enough.
I mean, just the fact that you have different grounds in the first place, whereas, for example, the NRL Magic ground, which is for the inspiration for this, doesn't have that at all, and everything's just at Suncorp Stadium.
I was looking at it. Realistically, I think you could do 6 games.
I mean, that's what they did last year.
Because there were 5 at the Adelaide Oval, unlike last year where there were 6. They've got a second Mount Barker game, but you do Thursday night, 1 of the Friday games, 2 games Saturday, whether you do the doubleheader or the first one at Mount Barker and the second one at Adelaide Oval. And then I think, and I'm going to check how long it would take to get between the two, but I would think you'd be able to do, oh yeah, it's a 40-minute drive, and that's with traffic. You could definitely do the early game at Mount Barker Sunday and then the late game at the actual Adelaide Oval.
Which is, I think, a bit of a scheduling blunder that game is scheduled for the Adelaide Oval. But
Collingwood and Hawthorn being there? I mean, it sounds like you're going to put that at a smaller venue.
No, it should have been at the G both times.
Okay, I was going to say.
That's that. But, okay, we're still keeping track of the soundbite?
Yes, I've got 3 so far.
Okay, well, the second...
Gather round.
That's 4. Begins with the Crows hosting on Thursday night, as they did last year. This time, they're hosting the Demons. 7:10 p.m. local, so 7:40 for the Victorian audiences. 4:40 a.m. Eastern, 1:40 Pacific for American viewers on Fox Sports 2. There's a theme throughout this round of teams with identical records playing each other. Not the case here. The Crows have lost all 3 of their games, including a 34-point showing at the Dockers last week.
They were ass.
That was surprising. Meanwhile, after losing the opening round, the D's have won 3 in a row, including a really, really accurate win this past Saturday against Port.
The Demons have won the last 3 meetings and 4 out of 5, though they did lose in 2021 after starting, 10-0? Was it 9-0 or 10-0? I think it was 10-0.
I remember that with the late goal by Walker, the questionable lack of a deliberate call, and just a huge huddle moment with ring the bell! Ring the bell!
Let's see. It was, no, they were 9-0. It was round 10.
Ah, okay. But I remember what was it? I think 96, 95?
Yes.
Bang. Close meeting last year, too.
Yeah. The Demons holding on to win by 4 at the G. You're never going to believe this. The Crows were inaccurate in the first half and then had to try to come back from that and almost got there. But in the end, they ended up regretting some inaccuracy from earlier in the game. That wasn't like a common trend or anything.
Not at all, boy.
Crows copped a bunch of injuries in that game, too. Jordan Butts got hurt. Nick Murray did his ACL. After having an excellent game right near the end, Isaac Rankin did his hamstring on a late kick. It was Rankin and I guess Taylor Walker with his 3-goal fourth quarter that nearly brought them back. But I remember just very good tactics from Simon Goodwin in that game in terms of getting Kazi some midfield time right away to loosen him up and then setting him free. Kate Chandler playing well, kind of high and low, and having 3 goals and plenty of involvements. One of the big guys from that game, though, you will not see because the sub was Joel Smith.
I'm in love with the coco.
Since last week, the Crows lost Wayne Miller to a patellar tendon injury. That's going to do it for his season. I thought he had been playing pretty well. One of the few bright spots, not the brightest spot, but a bright spot. Lachlan Murphy was the sub last week and then hurt his knee. And then on Melbourne's side, Stephen May, will he be back from broken ribs? Possible, which would be an extraordinarily fast recovery. Marty Hoare is unfortunately going to be out with a broken thumb, which means he will not be putting anyone on Hoare Island this week.
Is he still a smelly pirate hooker?
Absolutely.
With that in mind, then, I think it's time for our recently begun tradition to take hold again, that being Thursday Team Mad Libs.
Only this week, I'm going to be the one guessing. So, Benjamin, fire away.
Do you know anything, Ethan?
I got the alert from the AFL app. I want to say it said something like D's make May call and Crows. I don't know if it was swing the axe or 5 changes or what, but I think it's 5 changes.
Okay, well, Adelaide has made number changes for the opener as it looks to bounce back from an 0-3 start to the season. What's the number you think? 5. You are correct.
That's also now the number of times we've used the sound effect.
And we're not trying to shoehorn it in as much, I guess.
No, I'm just referring to it as the sound effect instead of prompting me using it more.
While star Melbourne defender
Stephen May
has been
included.
named to return from a rib injury. It's pain management. There's no surgery required for his broken ribs, and I think there was a slight vertebral issue as well, but he is in.
Hey, yes, the only surgery being done is on a grate.
You're holding on to that all those years later.
It's only a couple of years. It's not that many. When was that a thing?
Before COVID.
It's been that long? Like 2018.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, actually, the original videos for and then it caught on, and then the meme caught on in 2018.
So, the Crows have dropped blank, blank, and blank from the side that lost to Fremantle last week, while Lachlan Murphy and Wayne Miller are also out. So,
I'm looking at their lineup from last week. I feel pretty confident in saying Luke Pedler.
Yeah, he's the first one that's named. 2 more.
Fine. Let's go with James Borlace.
He's the third one.
And the second, Chase Jones?
No, I think he's been decent enough to start the year.
Ned McHenry?
No, not my sleeper.
Good. Jake Saligo again?
Thank goodness he's in. No, they need him on the inside.
Darcy Fogarty?
That would be a call, but not a call that Matthew Nix made. It is a forward, though. Is he listed as a forward? Let me see. I guess he's listed as a mid?
Scholl?
Lockie Scholl.
I thought Scholl was one of their better ones last.
What do we know? Defender blank.
Dan Curtin making his debut?
No.
Of course not.
Defender blank is back after missing the Dockers clash due to a blank injury.
That would have to be Jordan Butts.
And the injury was?
I don't remember.
His ankle.
But, speaking of Jordan Butts, I put out a tweet. Should his nickname just be Seymour? Or do we take it to a second level and make it Skinner or Principal or Steamed Hams or Emlyn Brees suggested Armin? So that's one of the 5 in.
Yeah, while 4 others are also in.
Let's see. Is there another defender? Patrick Parnell?
Yes. I'm surprised by that, just being on the smaller side.
That's 2.
Yeah, but being on the smaller side and coming in against the Ds, that's a little surprising. I know you really like Parnell.
Lockie Gallant, or is he hurt?
No Gallant.
Elliot Himmelberg.
No, not particularly tall option.
Wow. Schoenberg?
Nope.
Okay, I would be, by the way, the funniest person to have shirtless.
I will tell you right now.
No, hang on. I want to keep looking. Let's see.
Do you want to know how many of these people have played in the AFL this year?
Yeah.
1.
Sam Barry?
Yup.
All right, so that's 3. We've got Barry. We've got Parnell. We've got Butts. Let's see. Who could the others be?
One of the guys I expected it.
I'm scrolling through your list here.
I'll tell you now, one of these guys I took a note about.
Is there a debut?
Fuck no. This is Matthew Nix. Is he seriously afraid of giving people debuts? Many people are asking.
Are they going with 2 rucks and bringing in Kieran Scott?
No, I'm at Luke Van Kervis. Yeah, especially with Miller out, that makes sense, being more of the rebound type, able to play on the outside. You remember he had some decent patches in the later parts of last season when he got his debut.
Then who the hell is the other guy? Is it Sloan's out injured still, isn't he?
Yep, he's still got his eye injury. Nankervis, by the way, played rounds 19 through 22 last year. So they went 2-2 in that time. The last person has played a total of 12 games and only one last year, which was actually against the Demons.
I have no idea.
I guess kind of coming in for Scholl's spot, perhaps, as a medium forward is 21-year-old Braden Cook.
Okay.
I'm
all in favor of Schoenberg, but
I am all in favor of giving Dan Curtin and Billy Dowling a shot, but clearly they have to somehow do more to earn their debuts.
I mean, I don't know how they've done in the state league.
They've lit it up. Dowling in particular. Dowling is a North Adelaide product who was picked 43rd last year and had 34 disposals and 9 inside 50s this past week.
Wow. And then is Melbourne's only change just May and Verhoor?
Do you believe that's right?
Sure.
It is right.
Then who's going to be their sub?
May has been named to return after missing last week's win over Port Adelaide, with Marty Hoare the only omission for the D's. So no Adam Tomlinson, who was held over as an emergency this past week. Looks like they're opting to keep Tom McDonald down back, while of course allowing South Australian Harrison Petty to return forward.
All right. Those seem like decent decisions.
Decent decisions on the part of Goodwin? Yeah. As a reminder, the sub last week for the D's was your sleeper Tajwa Woden.
Okay, I'm guessing he'll be the sub again.
All right. The Demons are 10.5-point favorites as we look now, and this is a few hours after the lists came out. Thank you for avoiding as much info as you could.
Yeah, I actually did a good job on this. My question is just, how do the Crows respond? Because they looked really bad last week. Like, against the Cats, they did not play that poorly. They had a couple of really bad misses, but last week, they were just bad.
And it wasn't like rain was affecting things.
No, they were just the suckiest bunch of sucks that ever sucked.
I mean, there was so much that was down last week. We noted Brody Smith's kicking accuracy in large part in his 250th game, and a decent showing out of Ben Keys, who got the polished turd from us. But there was just so little return, and Alex Pierce was able to put the clamp on both Tex and Chris Burgess, that at this point, this is a club desperate for answers, especially after extending Knicks for a couple years. Friday got 2 games, and the first one is in the suburbs. And this is a repeat of a non-Adelaide Oval matchup last year.
Yes, Brisbane and North. Last year was at Mount Barker. This time it's at Norwood. Do we want to give all the times for this?
I'll do this. 4:40 p.m. local. For Queenslanders, 4:10 p.m. For Victorians, 5:10 p.m. Because through Sunday, Queensland is still a half hour behind South Australia. Daylight savings is left up to the states. For Americans, 2:10 a.m. Eastern Friday morning, 11:10 p.m. Pacific Thursday night, a Fox Soccer Plus game. Both teams are 0-3, and some real different vibes, though, about each of them. The Lions at least have been close in a couple of them. The Kangas are still the Kangas.
So here's the thing. I was thinking about this. If you had asked me at the start of the year which matchup would have 2 winless teams, this would not have been the one I would have guessed. You wouldn't have expected the Lions to be 0-3, even with their schedule the way it was.
What would you have said, Richmond and St. Kilda?
Probably that. Although the other one you could have kind of talked me into, believe it or not, would have been West Coast and Sydney. You could have convinced me, D's go into Sydney, start the year fired up, then Collingwood wins after the flag,
and then Essendon and
Richmond just always play them tough. Richmond would have been the toughest one to convince me, and that's the one they lost. Otherwise, I mean,
I think that was really the only other option.
What about if the Dogs hadn't played West Coast? You could have talked me into Dogs Cats.
Going to this matchup, though, the Lions have won 6 straight head-to-head, going back to their 2019 double-up. Last year in the first AFL game at Summit Sports Park, the Lions won by 75, just off a double-up. They were tied at quarter time.
I think they scored like 4 of the first 5 goals. I remember...
It sounds right. They were tied at 31 at quarter time.
I remember we were at an event for the Golden Gate Brews that night.
Right, yeah. But after that, North completely fell off in terms of pressure, and the Lions switched on. They scored 116 points from turnovers.
It's fun looking at all like the recent head-to-head streaks. I have a document, and most are pretty short, except for some of the ones against North. And
West Coast, a couple against the Suns, too. West Coast will get there.
Nobody's won more than 5 straight against the Eagles as of now.
As of now, Ethan.
I mean, by the end of the year, you would think like Frio will get it to 7, for example. Yep. For the Lions in the VFL last week, that's where Darcy Gardner played, and then James Tunstall, Jackson Pryor, and James Madden all kept up.
I think the most interesting thing about their VFL showing, though, was, I guess you'd call him a medium forward, Logan Morris, kicking 3 goals, but just hard to find a spot for him, unless maybe you manage someone like McCarthy.
I don't think McCarthy's what he'd manage at this point in the season. And I think he's done a good job. So when Logan Morris has a kid, it'll be Logan Morrison.
The baseball overlap people are fangasming right now.
I would just bring in Bruce Revel because his hair is cool.
Or Zane Zakostelski just to have the first ZZ in AFL history.
I just realized I figured out why the Lions are 0-3.
They haven't brought in Shadow Brain.
Well, that's one thing, but there's something else. What do they not have this year that they had last year? Nakia Cockatoo.
Craig, he was the glue. North suffered a second season-ending Achilles tendon injury last week with Callum Coleman-Jones going down. Eddie Fort did well as a sub, kicking 2 goals, but there's a real case to be made for Tyler Sellers to maybe make his debut after kicking 9 goals through the first 2 rounds and being potentially more like for like. He was their supplemental addition and elevation from their VFL list.
Is there any way you could include both of them?
Don't think they'd be doing that. I would say bring Charlie Coleman in to play in the back because he's done that decently well in the 2s, and whatever they've got right now is not going well. You're not going to rest Toby Pink, especially when he was part of the Glenelg flag team this past year, but something's got to change there. I'd say rest Core and put Coleman in instead for a big one-on-one.
Or check out one of the other defenders. I don't know. It's not like they have no shortage of ball-moving defenders. The issue is, the actual defense side of it. Brisbane's favored by 35.5. I would expect they win by more. This game actually does kind of interest me, though, in
that the Lions have potential to go 0-4.
No, they're going to win this game. And I'm not just saying that because I want them to lose or anything. I don't care who wins this game. Well, I guess from a competitive standpoint, it would be better if North wins, but I don't have anything against either team. It's just the battle for clearances in this game could actually be really fun because North's been really good at turning clearances into goals, and Brisbane's got a really good midfield. That could be compelling. That's what I'm going to look at in this game. I'm going to try to really focus on clearances in this game.
North had done a decent enough job in the first couple games, and then Luke Davies-Uniacke got completely shut out of the first half with really a team effort. There was no real strong tag on him that the Blues put on. It was just people rotating onto him and doing a good job. So wouldn't be surprised if the Lions try something similar.
There is one game at the Adelaide Oval as well Friday instead of doing a doubleheader there. I think the thing with the doubleheaders was that, you never really had a stretch where it was packed. It was, it was like people coming and going throughout the day. And so at the Adelaide Oval, it'll be Port Adelaide hosting Essendon. This one, 2:10 a.m. our time on Friday, 5:10 a.m. on the East Coast, 7:40 p.m. locally, and 8:10 in Victoria and New South Wales.
And Tasmania.
This is a Fox Soccer Plus game. And sticking with a similar record theme, both teams are 2-1.
Now, we've had this conversation before, Ethan, and said pretty strongly that we think that the 2 South Australian teams should be spread apart a bit more during this round.
Yeah, I would have one of them be the final game.
I think that would be the right call as well, and put another marquee matchup in Friday primetime in particular. I think it makes sense to have one of them open the round, as the Crows have done it the past 2 years. Were the Power Friday night last year, or was it a Saturday night? I think it was Saturday doubleheader because it was pouring.
Yes, that was against the Dogs.
Yes, that was one of the games where we could hear the rain.
Yeah, I would probably have put, you couldn't have put Geelong against the Bulldogs the Friday night game with the Cats playing Easter Monday. Otherwise, that would have been my bet.
And Hawthorn and Collingwood similarly. I think Freo and Carlton would have been the best bet because they both played Friday last week.
Yeah, Logically, that would have made sense.
Instead, though, we've got a matchup that has gone Port's way in all 7 meetings since 2019. Last year in round 8, it was Port 12-20-92, defeating Essendon 13-9-87. Bombers led by 14 at the half, but the game had turned a bit before that when Jordan Ridley got concussed because Willie Rioli stuck out his arm and got suspended 2 games. Power took the lead for good in the middle of the 4th, and that was also because accuracy completely betrayed Essendon in the 4th. They kicked 2-6 when they had kicked brilliantly for the rest of the game before that. That was a weird one. Then in round 16 last year, I mean, everybody remembers the Dan Houston after the siren goal. Legitimately an understandable set shot nominee for goal of the year.
Alternator, one that I, of course, slept through because that's kind of been my thing.
In the rain, 55 out after intercepting Nick Martin on a sliding grab.
Watch, I'm never going to sleep through a game this year, and there's not going to be a single after the siren goal.
And Houston just was excellent that whole game. Fittingly got the 3 votes even aside from that. Port were inaccurate again. But the other thing I remember from this game, which was at the G, a bit of a rarity for this matchup, was Dante Vicentini, one of the best names in the league. Scott Lysette did his meniscus in the final warm-up, and Vicentini was a super, super late in for his debut, to the point that his parents weren't even there when the game started because, I mean, usually you get told a couple days in advance. They were able to drive over because they are in Melbourne. Dante's brother Vigo, by the way, was a rookie draft pickup for Essendon. And thinking back to Dan Houston, Ethan, this will be his 150th game.
You know they're going to play the after the siren goal up so much with it being a milestone game plus that.
I mean, there's a lot to play up here in this game. Not just the winner from last year, but also the trade between the two teams, with Brandon Zerk-Thatcher and Xavier Dersma playing their first game against their old sides respectively.
I have honestly given so little thought to Zerk-Thatcher. He's just kind of been there, which is good for him because it means he's not horribly miscast like he was at Essendon.
I mean, I think that just kind of came from necessity at times from injury as well, when Nick Cox and Zach Reed had missed so much time, and Jordan Ridley and Jaden Laverty as well. Just kind of everyone missed time and left Zerk-Thatcher as an unfortunate victim and a son of Tom Hawkins. I'm surprised he wasn't at the G on Monday to celebrate his
kids. They should have carried him around like his other kids.
I guess we'll have a bit of a hamstring switcheroo in the midfield because Jason Horne-Francis is available while Ollie Wines is not.
I thought Wines' game last week was interesting. It was like a little bit hectic, but also I liked the physicality where largely they were missing that physical element otherwise.
If there are any changes to be made from the Sandful, you could consider Josh Sin at halfback, but I would rather have Jace Burgoyne get a full game in. And if
I loved Burgoyne in the sub role.
I get that as a versatile option. I think he's served enough time in that though to get a chance in the 22.
Is there a way you could move one of the forwards back to a midfield role and throw Mitch Georgiadis in up front? I don't think there's really a lot of flexibility to do that, but I'm just...
Maybe have Jeremy Finlayson be a strong mark and field kick and almost a Jesse Hogan way?
Yeah, or manage Finlayson. That's another option. I just think they need to shake things up.
And with Georgiadis having scored 3 in the sample, I think it's about time for him to get recalled. I'm not sure how they'd fit that in, though.
The other way, if you give Burgoyne a full game, maybe you drop Francis Evans into the sub or Jackson Meade.
I think it would also involve a full drop of Lockie Jones, who has not started the year off that well. I think that's a pretty understandable one.
On Essendon's side, Sam Durham's out concussed. That led to, Marcus Windhager's suspension, I think?
I think indirectly, because Windhager did put on that hip bump, but also there's some question about whether an incident with Seb Ross impacted things. I think there's a clear solution, though, as to what to do with the wing. Well, actually, there are 2 options. One of them is bring Xavier Dersma more downfield after his best game yet in black and red
out of all 3 of them.
Yes, but clearly his best this past week.
What's the other option?
Don't waste Nick Martin.
I like Martin much more in a midfield to half forward role. You know, maybe you slide Andrew McGrath back and have him as the kick out guy.
I think McGrath is the right guy for that. I always think of Martin as being able to kind of go back and forth with Zach Merritt between midfield and half forward. And I think that's probably the best option for the Bombers. I think there's more shakeup that's needed, but I'm not sure how much they're actually going to do? Well, Will Setterfield is available as well after being laid out with knee soreness last week. So
I would think just get him in a midfield role. I would be surprised if he's not back in.
maybe then you really do have Martin just have that more outside time center wing and half forward flank, which I just think that's the optimal place to put him. They would have to drop somebody out of this mix, though. You're not going to take out the guy that was in for Setterfield last week.
Harry!
I mean, how cruel would that be to Harry Jones?
I also think you need Elijah Sodis in there, or as I nicknamed him, Varna. I'm going to remind you the progression of that, how I came to that one. Sodis, sawdust. Chainsaws make sawdust. Husqvarna makes chainsaws.
People take effort in Australia to make good nicknames, so we tried to do the same.
Yeah, here he'd just be Soddy. Maybe Dusty if you're really lucky.
Or just Lige.
Anyway, Port Adelaide's favored by 22.5.
Considering the head-to-head history and how Essendon can still be victimized by a lot of talls, that does make sense to me. I'd put this a little closer, actually, because I think...
Well, I don't think Essendon's play very well.
I think there's still more that Essendon can do to fix things on the outside. I'd put this, I think, maybe just inside 3 goals.
I think it's fair. But this will be a really good test for Ben Mackay. This will be a chance to see, like, was it just that he needed to get out of North? Or is he just not on that level of the best tall defenders?
Okay, how much time are we going to take to talk about the Eagles and Swans over in Mount Barker? I'm grateful that not many people are actually going to be there for this humiliation.
I think we're going to talk a decent bit about what happened last year.
205-34. It was the first 200-point effort in the AFL since Geelong against Melbourne in late 2011, and that caused the immediate sacking of Dean Bailey, whereas last year's result did not cause any coaching changes. It was the Swans' equal greatest margin of victory in their history, their now 150-year history, and the Eagles' greatest margin of defeat. Sydney had 9 multiple goal scorers. Errol Golden won best on ground, and Braden Campbell was also everywhere from the beginning. That was, his whole season last year really caught my eye, but it was just the quantity with which he did it in this game that caught my attention. And he kept it up, which is why he was an easy pick for me as my sleeper this year.
Hey, that's a reminder that best on ground is back.
Oh, God.
Oh, I did you see a couple of things that have been going on. Well, I had mentioned, there's the DJ set this weekend with Rochelle and Alir.
Are they doing that together? Or is
I think they're each going one after the other.
I saw the other thing with Isaac Reichen doing a cover of a song by The Fray.
Yeah. So the NFL once tried to have a talent show.
I remember this because it was won by Ravens kicker Justin Tucker.
No, this was much earlier on, I think.
Oh, well,
Pro Bowl talent show.
Well, they had it again a few years back, and Justin Tucker won it because he's a legitimately trained operatic singer, and he wowed everybody with his performance of Ave Maria.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't a Pro Bowl thing then, but
more of these things to actually let players show personality, in a very public setting.
Yes, I think it's awesome. Let's have a chess championship, and maybe the winner goes across the ocean to take on Joey Votto.
Oh, I think it was actually. Maybe there was a version of Amazing Grace, actually, because Tucker has performed Ave Maria in actual ecclesiastical functions.
Yes. That is, okay, ecclesiastical is not a word I would have ever expected to make it onto this show.
I think it was appropriate there.
Yeah, so this one will be Friday night here at 7:30 p.m. our time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. Locally, it'll be 1 p.m. at Summit Sports Park Saturday, 1:30 p.m. if you're in Sydney, 10:30 a.m. if you're in Perth, and also 10:30 a.m. if you're in the eastern 2/3 of Mongolia. And Earth and Mongolia being on the same time zone is interesting.
I think that's also the same time zone as Japan or the Philippines.
The Philippines, yes. Japan, no.
Oh, Japan.
All of China, though.
But yeah, right, all of China. Okay, what changes do we know for this one? The Eagles will be without Tyler Brockman because he's concussed. I expect that they're going to bring in Andrew Gaff in some capacity after finding things again in the waffle. And in the back, Alex Witherden should probably come in. I would hope that he comes in for Tom Cole at this point. In terms of small or medium-sized forward option, there are a couple debut watches there. with rookie draft number 1, Locke Rawlinson kicking 3 goals, and Natanui Academy product Angus Dewar kicking 2 as well.
Natanui Academy, that's a thing.
Yeah, that's like their next generation academy, like a lot of youth development, and that's been a big cause for him, and it's a way that he's staying involved with the club, which I love. I also want some more on the inside, and I want Clay Hall to get in. He could go be part of that group along with Ruben Jinby and hopefully Harley Reid. He needs to stay inside. Is he going to have a tough time? Yes, of course he is, because he's going to be everyone's target, but it's the best way for him to learn. As I said in the last recap, give him a baptism by fire.
What I'd like to see from him in a development standpoint is learning not to just try to run over everybody and like every now and then
use a bit more finesse.
Yeah, I'd rather have a guy who's too eager to take everyone on than a guy who's shying away, but it's been detrimental at points.
You're not in U18 anymore. So we got this debut speculation for the Eagles. We got a club debut confirmed, though, for the Swans.
Taylor Adams. Was it hamstring that kept him out again? I mean, that's kind of been his thing.
No, it was an MCL strain, but he got through 2.5 quarters in the VFL and will be playing his 207th AFL game overall and his first for the Swans.
Other than that, Sydney could get Harry Cunningham back from concussion this week.
Harry!
Dane Rampy's got a hamstring injury. He's out 3 to 4 weeks.
Was subbed out at halftime against the Tigers. Could have used him.
Could use him to make one of his typical, like, clutch late game plays.
Or just to climb the goalpost again.
I guess one possibility would be for Aaron Francis to come in. I didn't think he was that good last year. I wouldn't go with him. Could also throw in Joel Hamling, but I liked how Robbie Fox played last week, but you could move him back and bring in one of the Sams. Wicks, Reed.
Well, we don't know what the deal is with Wicks yet. I think
he'll be back with the team this week.
We'll see. It's not clear as of when In the Mix was published. I've liked Fox in the front so much, though.
I thought he was pretty good last week, and I thought he was one of their better players.
Well, he can do the annoyance job, and he can also just be a legitimate mark and goal. So I think maybe out of necessity then you do bring Francis in if Hamling can't go. Hamling was sick last week and did not play in the twos.
Is there any other option there you could throw in? I mean, what if you just go Cunningham in for Rampy and leave it at that?
I mean, that's not quite like for like. I would almost consider maybe throw Joel or Marty back.
Look, this is also a game where you can just throw stuff at the wall.
Exactly. So
that's where you worry less about it being a like for like sub.
I mean, I don't think you're gonna give anybody a debut here, but maybe that happens. Or Jake Lloyd has been playing in the midfield a bunch and on the wing. I think that's one to watch there. Maybe have him moving back. Regardless, the Swans will win this game. It's a question by how much. Odds currently have them 54.5 point favorites.
I think they win by more than that, but I don't think it gets to 100. I'm going 132 to 59.
You stuck with this for a while.
Yeah, I think, look, the Eagles are going to play with some pride, remembering last year and looking at last week. What I'd like to see out of the Eagles is just a better second quarter, because second quarters have been where the talent gap has shown at pretty much every time this year. So I'd like to see them just score a couple goals in the second quarter, actually, and lose the second quarter by less than, 15 or so.
Reasonable goal.
Yeah. And other than that, just play hard. Don't embarrass yourselves.
Work hard, play hard, keep partying like it's your job.
When I hear work hard, play hard, I think of a different song. But, I will say one positive thing about the Eagles for all this. Adam Simpson's attitude, he could go in and be angry every week, and instead he's kind of just taking it and wearing it. I like the way he's handled everything. Benjamin, 78% of our listeners are between 18 and 35 years old, so they probably want to start a podcast like we did.
How did you know that number, Ethan?
Thanks to the analytics we have for Spotify for Podcasters.
Formerly known as Anchor, sorry Frio fans, Spotify for Podcasters has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer. No fancy software needed.
It's so easy you can edit it while drunk.
And Spotify for Podcasters doesn't just allow you to upload to Spotify, you can also distribute your podcast on platforms like Apple, Stitcher, and more, just like we do.
Best of all, it's completely free.
Not only is it free, you can even make money from listener support or ad revenue. Hint, hint.
Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to podcasters.spotify.com to get started today.
As a reminder, we are on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Americans Footy. We initial our tweets so you know which of us is posting, because I think it's good to be able to tell our voices apart. Personally,
Even that, I wonder if people know. Well, I guess it helps. We like different teams.
Personally, I am on Twitter at BenjaminHK01.
I am at Castle Media. Brian Harambe is on Instagram, a cat named Brian, and he is currently sitting in the window
Enjoying the sunrise.
Speaking of sunrisers, Hyderabad.
And speaking of that, just IPL in general, we've been watching more and more of it because it's on at 7 a.m. our time and is completely reasonable.
And I am buying stock. I don't know if I've ever used buy stock now for footy. Usually I've used it in relation to basketball stuff.
I think you might have used it a couple times on Twitter, but maybe not in the podcast.
Okay, so college basketball guru John Rothstein, if he likes a player who's on the rise, will say, buy stock now. Like, I'm surprised he hasn't said it about Ryan Beasley yet. It'll happen. That Ryan Beasley buy stock now tweet is going to hit.
Let's see if you have mentioned it. Yeah, you mentioned it for Mitch Owens. Okay, good. Michito Pepper, buy stock now. This was from April last year. Good.
Well, I am now applying buy stock now to a different sport. I am applying it to cricket, and specifically Mayank Yadav, who is this ridiculous bowler. He's close to 100 miles an hour in non-communist measurements, or he's had a few between 155 and 157 kilometers, and he's going to be an international star.
He is only 21 years old and worked through a grade 2 quad strain last year.
I followed him on Instagram last night. He was right around 272,000. He's now up to 320,000.
Well, he's played 2 IPL matches for LSG and has been player of the match each time. He took 3 for 14 yesterday and was just fabulous. It's not just that he's a fast bowler, it's the accuracy. And as the opposing captain, Faf du Plessis, said, because they were playing RCB, is that he can vary the distance well while still keeping that pace.
I'm not doing a Dunning-Kruger effect thing here. I have watched enough cricket to not know every detail. There are still rules and things I'm figuring out, but I have seen enough that I can tell you that boy nice. And when I watch Mayank Yadav bowl, that boy nice. See, I feel like that's a really fun level to be at, learning a sport where you don't know everything and you're still learning, but you can tell when one guy's just on a different level.
With that, we're going to get back into the fixtures for this fourth round here. Well, fifth round, but round 4. And we pick up with the Saturday afternoon game at the Adelaide Oval, that being Freo and Carlton. The Blues have yet to win at the Adelaide Oval. That was the subject of our song last year. The song with which we introduced our recap for last year's round. Because it was to the Campfire Song theme, of course, and it ended.
And if you still think the Blues can win in Adelaide, you're wrong. But it would help if McGovern was on.
Boom, boom. Because Mitch McGovern was laid out for that game, and they really felt it. Carlton are, 0-7 at the Adelaide Oval. They've played 4 fewer games there than anybody else.
Ooh, this is another one where we get to go ham with the time zones. Friday night here, 10:20 p.m., Fox Sports 2. Saturday, 1:20 a.m. on the East Coast, 1:20 p.m. in Perth, 3:50 p.m. at the Adelaide Oval, 4:20 p.m. in Victoria, New South Wales, and Tasmania. Both these teams are 3-0. I'm not going to fall into the trap of saying this is the game I'm most excited for this round, but realistically, the top 3 games for me for this round are these next 3. I mean, Adelaide, Melbourne is there's a lot of areas where things get really dysfunctional there.
And Port versus Essendon is just interesting enough.
That one's narrative heavy, even if I don't think it's going to be all that close.
This is narrative heavy because of the records, and that's...
Yeah, I think the Blake Acres stuff has been phased out at this point.
So, it's just, these are teams that are 3-0. The Blues have won 6 of 7 meetings since 2019, but have yet to win ever at the Adelaide Oval. Round 17 last year, the Blues won by 53 in a real pressure-heavy game where Jacob Wiedering actually got the 3 votes for just being his typical Jacob Wiedering self.
Ooh, is Carlson going to wear white? Because no, Freo is the special...
Oh, right, the stealth jumpers. Yes, they will. That's been confirmed.
Okay, good. Because otherwise that would have been like an awful clash.
Also, we know that the Crows are wearing the same jumper as last year's round.
They need to have that bird replace the bird on their logo.
I'm a big fan of their clash. That's like their, I think, 09 throwback. So yeah, that clash is taken care of.
Yeah, Frio's been 3-0 twice before, played finals both times. Probably not too many changes you need to make with how well things have gone, but they will have some options. You know, Jager O'Meara's been the sub the last couple weeks. I don't think this is a game where you manage someone. Maybe they do that where, like, instead, you know, last week he came on for Fife. Maybe you could, like, make Fife the sub and have O'Meara start off. I don't know.
There are options there.
And then Carl Warner, who had that really bad looking, but fortunately not actually that bad concussion in round one. He should be available. And then Neil Erasmus seemed to play well in the waffle, as did Cooper Simpson, who was the 35th overall pick.
I know that he was touted during in the mix article as a potential sub.
I just think opponent-wise and everything, I don't think this is the one.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they go into this completely unchanged, unless maybe we find out that someone was playing through something. Or, I mean, who would even go out for Warner?
That's the other difficulty, because the backs have held up. I mean, I guess Josh Draper, even though he started off well.
I've actually really liked how he's played in these brief.
Yeah, that's a tough call then. The Blues will be without Caleb Marchbank. He's concussed. They're also going to be without David Cunningham with cap injury, and Jack Martin and Jesse Motlop both need to nurse hamstring injuries. All three of those are out multiple weeks. Lewis Young seems like a logical inclusion in defense because he was good in the VFL. It was interesting to see that Brody Kemp, while also decent in defense, was significantly trialed at forward. So where does my sleeper going to fit into things here?
I don't know if that's a pretty crowded forward. Maybe he gets back in over like a Corey Durden at some point or something.
I think it's more an immediate concern because of Martin and Motlop being absent. If anybody goes out, it would be Durden. Mark Pitnet's going well as a ruck in the VFL. He's been among their best, but with Tom DeConing being so successful, it's hard to squeeze anyone out unless you just decide to go really tall in the forward group right now.
Well, I don't think DeConing's been that great, but I think he's probably the guy you want just with his full field versatility, whereas Pitnet is much more just a hit out guy. You probably want DeConing for a matchup with Luke Jackson, I think.
Well, maybe you want the bigger body on.
Maybe you want to have both for that.
And then maybe you'd have Kemp as a sub, considering the forward trial.
Now that I like.
That's a very situational thing there. Blues are 6.5-point favorites. Do we see them actually getting their win at the Adelaide Oval?
Unfortunately, I think so. But I also didn't think Freo would be 3-0. If you had had me guess their record at this point, I probably would have said 1-2. We were also both higher on the Crows.
So what do we know? So that was the first leg of the Saturday doubleheader. I want somebody to just have a side that says just like, this is a doubleheader.
I like the rubber mats guy.
We mentioned that, I think, around this time last year.
Yes, I love that.
So dude at the Oakland Coliseum, old dude, just for the rubber match of a series. It was like 3-game series tied at 1. As he just wanted everybody to know that it was a rubber match and made a sign that just said rubber match.
See, I'm usually very critical of signs because a lot of them were very basic, like,
can I have your boots? Or I traveled how far to see this guy?
That one's okay. Like, just like, go Harry, number 10. There was a fun one in the MLB game in Seoul for Ha-Seong Kim. It was like if Ha-Seong Kim has a million fans, I am one of them.
Oh, it's like the one that we see all the time for Patrick Cripps from Cripps season.
Yes, it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I have made a sign once, ever, for the 1974 Oakland A's World Series reunion. And the sign said, of course, hey, Sal Bando, give him a 74 Oakland A's thank you on. But the signs I like have to be really low effort or really high effort.
Yeah, there's like just no in between.
Like, I don't know if I've told you about the sign before. I might have mentioned this on the prior episode. The LeBron take the high road back to Cleveland with your second year losing to the GSW. You are no longer known as King James. You are now loser crybaby James.
That's
with your feelings hurt. Also, all the different punctuation and text colors and stuff. It's a great side.
That was what, the 2018 NBA Finals?
No, I think it was in the 2016 finals. So it didn't end up working.
Yeah, the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead.
Sure did. Anyway,
wait, Dogs and Cats? Revenge of...
You gotta play the clip.
Well, actually, it was Cats and Dogs in the original.
Okay, I mean, you could also use it because there will be a rematch round 19 at Geelong, so that'll be, the hashtag will be AFL Cats Dogs, whereas this is...
Dogs, Cats.
Yeah. Anyway, one of the best Jeopardy moments ever.
We'll just have them listen.
Cats and Dogs, the revenge of blank blank. Raya?
What is pussy furry and...
No. The Healer Ever? But it's Kitty Galore.
So this will be 7:40 p.m. local time in Adelaide, 8:10 p.m. for Victorian audiences, 5:10 a.m. Eastern, 2:10 Pacific in the U.S. on Fox Soccer Plus. The Dogs are 2-1. The Cats are 3-0. You really thought the Cats might lose to Hawthorn because of this same record theme in this round.
Yes. And I also thought the Hawks wouldn't just have so many self-inflicted mistakes. Now, the way I always see a game against the Bulldogs at this point is the same. Their best players can take over any game and beat anybody. Talent-wise, they are always really intimidating.
Top of the list, yes.
But there's a difference in coaching, and a lot of times they just have underachieved. So while I never feel good about going up against Bont, Liberatore, English, and Treloar,
you have cautious optimism?
I always feel good about Chris Scott against Luke Beveridge.
Will you say that even if Toby Conway is not playing?
Yes. Last week, for example, he made a couple decisions that didn't make sense to us, like taking Sean Manna out, and that worked out. So I'm just going to let Chris Scott cook right now, although I definitely would rather have Conway in than Stanley. But that actually kind of leads me to my next point. I think that this game is going to largely hinge on Mark Blicavs.
Well, he was left out of the ruck for much of round 3, and we thought, maybe he might be saved for this.
That's what I was thinking, especially with the quick turnaround. This is a game where he's going to need to stand up. I mean, there's been a habit of just guys finding a way to stand up for the Cats against the Bulldogs. I think at the time, Tom Stewart got concussed, which was, I think, one of the best home and away wins of 2022. Other than, the Richmond game with the late Jack Henry mark. And I think of Gryan sliding back and kind of playing at halfback.
Was that also the game where Gryan, took one away from Ed Richards to give him the lead? Or was it that first meeting last year?
That might have been, but he's had good moments against these guys. Last year, the Bulldogs won against, a half VFL squad where I thought Cats actually played pretty well. Ollie Dempsey played well. Mitch Nevitt was good. I love Toby Conway in his debut, which is why I think he needs to be in there for this game.
Luke Beveridge actually had to make a coaching decision. He switched Rory Lobb onto him, and Rory Lobb is catching some heat for a TikTok that he and his wife made.
Could it be as stupid as the Heat Ginnivan caught where Ginnivan and Quainer a couple years ago? I mean,
it was about him having to play VFL for the rest of his career.
Okay, I see why that would ruffle a few feathers then.
I think there's more to gain from looking at that round 12 meeting last year where guess who was best on ground?
Mark Blicavs.
A 22-point win at Marvel. The Cats have had the Dogs' number at Marvel.
They've had their number everywhere. I think before the round 24 loss last year, it was 21 out of 24 or something.
Something ridiculous like that.
Either that or 22 out of 25. It's been generally a good matchup. But again, there is always a scenario where just any of the Bulldogs' best players just absolutely dominate.
Speaking of Ed Richards, he's likely to return from his concussion. And I'm glad that we mentioned Rory Lobb earlier also, or that I did, because he's keeping the pressure on Sam Darcy. 5 goals and 20 hitouts in the reserves. So 9 goals in the first couple rounds.
My guess is he worked his way back in at some point. Maybe they just try to overwhelm a team with a billion talls.
Are the Cats the right team for that?
I don't know. Something most teams haven't tried. I think maybe it would make sense, actually.
Wouldn't be shocked if you see it from them or from the Lions, who just go tall whenever they fucking feel like it.
Yeah, Bulldogs should do it against the Lions to try to counter them.
No, I'm talking about the Lions doing it against the Cats soon.
That's true, yeah.
Other potential inclusions for the Dogs from good reserves performances are Riley Garcia and James Harms, who both had above 30 disposals. Also, James O'Donnell returned in defense. So there's some options there.
Maybe you take Caleb Poulter out. He was the sub last week. Other than that, though,
maybe DeRay's a bit vulnerable.
Yeah, maybe he's the one that goes for Richards.
Tough call, though. Had enough Cats milestones lately, Ethan?
I'm ready for another. My belief is that generally teams play better in milestone games. The player themselves typically does, and then the whole team just seems to, it's a motivation factor. I've said this. This will be number 250 for Mark Blitzops, who is somehow only 2-time club best in Ferris. Well, I think that's more a testament to the guys around him than it is a knock on Blitzops, because there's a lot of times where he's played up to that level.
He was, of course, a 2022 All-Australian, and you put him on the bench because there's no clear place to put him. He is a former steeplechaser and a Category B rookie. These guys know how to recruit.
I don't think you'll have too many changes from last week.
I think the biggest change right now is Brian Harambe attacking your closet door.
My guess is they moved Jack Bowes back into the 22, in which case maybe you demote O'Shea Mullen to sub. Bowes, I thought the one quarter he played last week was the best quarter he's played since joining the team. Maybe you'd keep him in the sub role. Maybe in a world where everybody's healthy,
you don't fix what's not broken.
Say where you also have Dangerfield and Guthrie and guys to decide from. You're never going to have everybody healthy at the same time. But if you did, I think Bowes for the sub would have to be considered. Maybe you go and manage somebody else this week. I would not be bothered if Zach Toohey stays out. I like the guy a lot, but he's lost a step or two.
Brownlow is haywire.
Oh, by the way, South Australians will really need to pick their spots to boo Patrick Dangerfield because he's still out.
Maybe Jai Clark would go out. Maybe you make Clark the sub. I guess the most vulnerable would be probably Clark and Mullen.
I think that's fair. How do you feel about this line as the Cats fan here?
2.5. I would maybe put it a couple points higher, but I totally get it because on one hand, the Cats have dominated this head-to-head. On the other, the Bulldogs clearly have the better midfield and just insane star power.
This game can have a lot of variance, I think.
I would feel really good about this game at home. And again, there will be one at home, round 19. All right, we have 3 games Sunday at 3 different sites. Because remember, the difference between last year's and this year's is that there are 5 games at the Adelaide Oval instead of 6. And there is a second at Mount Barker.
And it's an expansion extravaganza!
The only way this game could have been cooler would have been if they were both 3-0, but the Suns kind of got it handed to them in Ballarat. They're both coming off of byes. This game will be at noon local time on Sunday. That's 12:30 in Victoria, New South Wales, Tasmania, and Queensland because of daylight saving.
Correct. Daylight savings in Australia ends the first Sunday of April. And in America, it'll be 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 Pacific on Fox Soccer Plus. I did not realize how lopsided this fixture has been because the Giants won the first meeting, the Suns won the next 4, and the Giants have won 11 of 12 since 2015.
Yeah, there have been a lot of years where this has just been a not competitive game. The Giants have just kind of shitted on them. Last year was a 40-point game. The Giants finally won a game at the Manuka Oval. It only took them 4.5 years. It was a very good game for Josh Kelly, and Sam Taylor was best on ground against Ben King.
Ethan had to check with me that was Josh Kelly and not Jake.
Yes, I'm never going to figure this out because they're both 4-letter J names, and they're both...
One of their teams can win finals.
Okay, still. Other notes for this game, the Giants will not be the orange team this week. They will be the
charcoal team, the Never Surrender.
Is it charcoal or black?
Charcoal, the Never Surrender Jumpers are back.
Daniel Gorin thinks they look amazing, and I think these look really good too. Yeah, it is charcoal.
I love when they trot these out for Sydney Derbies, etc. So glad they're keeping them around. Also, Jesse Hogan received a 2-year contract extension.
Darn, I was going to make the transition. Speaking of keeping around. Anyway, Giants probably won't have too many changes. Callan Ward's still a week or 2 away. Maybe Nick Haynes gets back in. He was the sub round 1. He had sex.
Yeah, little over 9 months ago because his daughter Murphy was born this past week, his first kid. Actually, oh wow, I need to know who this guy is because they're showing him all the time. He's got to be a great player.
Actually, maybe with Nick Haynes or someone else who's had a kid recently, can put it to the test. I want to just go around like a maternity ward and ask everyone when they conceived, because I just learned it has been 9 months since Anthony Rendon last got a hit.
Okay, there's something there. I thought it was going to be something about NBA Youngboy.
No.
Or actually Jalen Green, sorry, because apparently 2 of his 3 baby mamas, if the story is true, have the same due date.
But yes, Anthony Rendon last got a hit on July 3rd, 2023. So there have definitely been babies conceived and born since then. I like that the baseball world has just kind of collectively said, yeah, fuck this guy.
I don't think we've gotten to that point for anyone in AFL yet because we have good villains.
Also, just like nobody that plays footy seems to not like the sport.
Yeah, that's a thing there. I mean,
I also feel like just the amount of training time and the amount of running you have to do, it tests your commitment.
Giants will get a couple returns in the reserves because Braden Pruce will finally return from his back injury, and Phoenix Gothard, their first-round pick at number 12, has finally gotten over mono. The Suns have handed debuts to 3 Academy products drafted in this past cycle. Ethan Reed was pick number 9, a 202 centimeter, I guess, like 6'8", flexible key player. That to me screams maybe Levi Casbolt or someone like that gets a week off.
Yeah, Casbolt's been pretty quiet so far this year. Yeah, that would make sense.
Other debutants, Will Graham, pick number 26, who's a sort of rebound defender that could challenge guys like Connor Buderick for a spot, even though he's had a good start to the year, maybe would take away from Darcy McPherson being involved entirely. And then Sam Clohessy, pick 4 in the rookie draft, is also getting the shot. The younger brother of Ted, who's listed for Geelong.
I think Ted was the sub in that round 24 game against the Bulldogs last year, actually.
Yeah, that sounds right. So topical there. Also, Mal Rosas and Jared Witz are available from their suspension and groin injury, respectively. I mean, that automatically pretty much means sorry, Ned Moyle, even though you are a huge person. But where else might they make changes, Ethan?
Well, I got to go back and look at their round 2 team to try to... So, I mean, you're bringing in at least 4 or 5 guys. So they're going to be significant change.
Off just 1 loss.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much off of a loss as it is something they were planning on doing. Well, let's see. Rory Atkins, I think he was the sub, and he barely did anything. Jed Walter only had the 4 disposals.
He'll get another shot. They're going to pump games into the debutants. I think Ben Long is not going to get...
He's an obvious one. 4 disposals. For some reason, they hadn't played him at forward. It didn't work.
Yeah, full forward. That was strange. Yeah, I think...
Brandon Ellis only 8 disposals. I would...
Right now, just the ones that stand out to me are Atkins and Long.
What about, I don't know, Bodie Uland, or is that part of trying to go young?
If they do want to go young, then I think Uland will stay.
Alex Sexton?
Been functional enough at halfback, though, maybe. So a lot of questions here, and that's why it's tough to kind of suss out this line at all. It's a 17.5 point line right now in favor of the Giants.
I feel like it should be more like a 2-goal line than a 3-goal line.
I mean, just so much is yet to be decided as we are recording this and, as we release the schedule, because it'll be before the list for the rest of the round emerge. This expansion extravaganza will have a rematch round 19 actually at the Sydney Showground. This has been a game that's had a lot of alternate sites, so I'm glad it's actually going to be a show round game again.
Hang on, I have a new name for this game.
Is it alliterative?
Yes. The Shitty Stadium Sponsor Squabble, because NG and People First.
Yeah, they don't sound like stadium names. Well, even though like the Houston Texans have NRG.
Yeah, but NRG as opposed to NG.
Middle game Sunday, Richmond and the Saints at Norwood. I think this is a real interesting one from a Saints perspective with the narrow ground. Because remember, Norwood has basically no wing.
I would have liked to have the Cats play there then and get like an extra home game, basically. Before we get into this one, a few years ago, the idea of the Tigers playing in such a small oval would have been unheard of.
I mean, they already hate playing at Marvel.
Well, Damien Hardwick at Mount Barker is going to be really fascinating, and I think...
Yeah, by the way, speaking of Marvel, Richmond has a technical home game there against the Saints in round 22. So hopefully Uze is more content with that than Dimma was. This one, though, will be a 2:50 p.m. local bout, so 3:20 p.m. for Pacific audiences in Australia. For Americans, 1:20 a.m. Eastern Sunday morning, 10:20 p.m. Pacific Saturday night. And this will be the last actual televised game in the U.S. for the Gather Round on Fox Sports 2. This was a double up last year as well, and an entertaining one at that. Round 14 was Trent Cotchin's 300th game. Even in the rain, you had over 62,500 there. Cotchin had a vintage performance in the midfield, as did Dusty, as the Tigers won by 20. It was a pressure-heavy game for Richmond, and their premiership core lifted.
Round 22, the Saints led wire to wire, used their rebound ability really well. Big games for Jack Sinclair and Isaiah Wangani-Millera. Max King went 6-1. They won that game by 36. I get the feeling this is going to be another big game for Max King, considering Richmond already has struggled a lot with tall forwards.
Game on for Tyler Young and Ben Miller to go.
I did like Ben Miller last week.
Yeah, we're going up against Max King and Mitch Owens. That'll be fun.
The Tigers actually do a good job on King, but Owens gets him. Look, tall forwards are why the Saints are going to win this game. I mean, that was something the Swans needed to exploit more last week. That was rare John Longmire oversight.
Saints are favored by 20.5, and I think that makes sense given our concerns about Richmond's backs going up against that Saints forward group. And Richmond's talls are under even more strain than they were before, though that is more a forward concern because Noah Balta is out 4 to 6 weeks with a knee injury, and Tom Lynch 10 to 12 with another hamstring issue.
I liked how Lynch had played last week, even though he did have some shithousery.
I mean, that's Tom Lynch.
I just think he had played really well and had been a force in there.
How tall do Richmond go with their replacements? Because if you want to...
Well, you're going up against Cal Wilkie and Zane Cordy.
And Josh Battle.
Yeah, I mean, I think of Battle a little bit more as a ball mover.
What's a battle?
I think he's pretty capable one-on-one, though. I'd still rank him as their second best one-on-one.
Yeah, I'd probably put him ahead of Cordy.
So do you expect them to bring in Jake Kazitsky and Samson Ryan? I think Ryan is a pick that we would both make for this one because he can also have that second ruck capability. I'd expect Kazitsky and Ryan over Sam Naismith because he's very much a pure ruck. And against Rowan Marshall, you need some more craft, I think. The aforementioned Dustin Martin and Dylan Grimes are both tests. If Grimes returns, that's a tough one because Tom Brown did really well. I would say keep sitting Grimes.
You're never going to omit Grimes, but you can just be very conservative with his rehab because he's not there right now. Liam Baker did have a suspension upheld for rough conduct on Lewis Melican. It is 1 game.
Thank you, David Zita, for your tireless reporting.
I guess Jack Graham could replace him.
Yeah.
Back from a quad injury. And then Kane McAuliffe had 30 disposals in the VFL.
I think if Graham's good to go, he's in. But I like the idea of McAuliffe coming in and maybe letting Martin and or Bolton do a little bit more as resting forwards. Maybe that'll be a way to potentially manage a bit of Dusty's recovery too.
On St. Kilda's side, Max King is back, where he had the 1-game suspension for the bump on Finn McRae. Marcus Winghager's out. So you're going to have to shuffle some guys around, I guess. Besides King back in. I think Riley Bonner's too important to the structure, but also
he can be Aaron Hall.
Darcy Wilson didn't do a ton last week. Cooper Sharman, who you had having a big game, got subbed out.
I could see Sharman getting dropped as a wake-up call here.
After going 2-2 last week, you got to think Caminiti stays in, which is good.
Yeah, and that puts even more of a strain on Sharman there. Good performances for a few states of the reserves. Hugo Garcia, Riley's brother, was among the best. He was picked 50. And Lance Collard bounced back well from his demotion with 4 goals. Also, Jack Hayes kicked 2. If they ever want some more ruck support or if Marshall goes out for any reason, you'll get another chance. He's always been one that we've enjoyed seeing him just kind of have that big start in his first game and get over a lot of injuries. We hope he gets another shot.
I'm really interested in seeing how Ross manages this thing because it seemed like you got probably about 28-ish guys that you could give a spot to. And I don't know just how much he takes last week's performance into account or how much he just likes his guys within the system. I don't know. I think if you pay close attention and do some reading between the lines, the lineup decisions here are going to teach you a lot.
how much booing will we have in this final game? An actual Sunday evening game. That is like the big conclusion to the round that Sunday evening should be. I think we need to play the Sunday Night Football music here. This is appropriate.
Now, I do want to say the actual football might not be the most competitive game. I mean, it's interesting. It would have been way cooler if both teams were winless.
They both got 3 losses, though, Hawthorn and Collingwood under the Adelaide Lights. 4:40 local, 5:10 for Victorians.
So at least the second half will be really under light.
The lights will take full effect. It'll be 3:10 a.m. Eastern, 12:10 Pacific, Sunday morning for us.
This is a Fox Soccer Plus game. These teams played once last year.
And the Hawks won in round 21. They were wearing their retro jumpers with like the cool like full body Hawk thing going. Looked great with the long sleeves. James Sicily had a monster game, and Ben McGinnis successfully tagged Nick Dacos, who also had that hairline fracture in that game that cost him the Brown, though. I think we can say that. It cost him the Brown, though.
Yeah, I think just doing the math, it almost certainly did.
He was only -3 at the end. The Pies had given up 3 runs of 5 goals from round 1 through 20 last year. Hawthorn had 2 in this game alone, and a big part of their scoring, Brandon Ryan. 3 goals in his second career game.
Oh, he's at Brisbane now. Okay.
Yeah, that was the Gunston deal.
Hey, maybe if Eric Hipwood keeps struggling, that's a name you start to throw around.
I mean, it's one that I would already consider, but Fagan seems to be backing in Hipwood. That was just a thorough Hawthorn win in round 21.
I think it kind of prompted the question, is this just a down game for them, or, did they get exposed? And it turned out it was a down game, although they didn't finish the home and away season very well.
Though they answered the concerns that people had about their center bounces. Scott Pendlebury and Tom Mitchell performed much better from then on out. And Mitchell was, I believe, in the votes for the Norm Smith medal. So yes, the booing. That player that'll be the source of that was already enough of a topic on Easter Monday. And the AFL conceded, they should have paid a couple high frees to Jack Ginnivan.
I told you my thoughts. He came in with a reputation and ducked in his first 2, and first impressions matter. But I have a feeling he gets at least one thrown his way this week.
I think the first time it's close, he gets it.
The problem is the way he kind of throws his arm out. It's like, no, you need to
be more subtle about it, like Luke Shuey and Joel Selwood.
Fling the head back briefly is the way to do it. He needs to watch basketball players that know how to sell fouls.
And seriously, take a look at what Luke Shuey does with elevating the arm a tad, and also the slide turn of the head going back. You look at, what he did to get that after the siren goal against Port in that elimination final. That's a textbook example that will still work on 2024 umpires.
But also, you got to try to fight through it and keep making the play in case they don't give you the call.
And that's something that Shuey and Selwood always did. So I think that's completely valid what I've said here.
Anyway, this game has a lot of narratives.
From last year's game, Ginnivan playing Collingwood for the first time.
Collingwood still trying to get on track. I think there will be, with a win, even if it's against a team that's looked pretty bad, some very annoying Pies are back discourse.
Hawthorn will need to make a couple changes from this past week as well, because Mitch Lewis did his hamstring before 3/4 time and could not return in the rain. He's out 1 to 2 weeks, so maybe Gunston comes back in there, or Max Ramsden, who was the held over emergency from this past week.
I know the Hawthorn people I follow and thought they were going to bring in both Meek and Ramsden, so Ramsden definitely has a case. I don't think Lloyd Meek's position is in doubt at this point. Or maybe do you bring Ned Reeves in at a forward position with some backup ruck duty?
I would rather keep Reeves in the 2s and have Ramsden take that backup ruck role, because he can do that.
By the way, did you see Max Lynch's introductions?
Yes, it's the form I expected from him. I'm glad he has the job. Oh, you know who has the job for emceeing a few of these games this round?
Remind me.
Mitch Robinson. Hopefully we'll be able to hear some of that on the broadcast. The other out for Hawthorn from last week, well, somebody put a hex on the Wizard because Nick Watson is out 4 to 6 weeks with some syndesmosis issues. Sam Butler kicked 4 for Box Hill, so I think he would slide right in there. But other changes will probably be made. I mean, there's a chance for Reeves to come back. Seamus Mitchell was strong again. He played 14 games last year and debuted, I think, in the against the Giants.
There's something about Watson that bugs me a little. He got into it with guys a couple times last week.
I don't mind that.
Maybe it's the way he's been hyped up at a rival club and the way he carries himself a little, but I'm sure he will end up being a pretty good player. You saw it in the fourth quarter last week, but it was funny to see a couple of really bad misses.
There's one other change that's obvious here.
Finn McGinnis.
He had 28 with Box Hill. He will be on Nick Dacos again.
On Collingwood's side, this will be game number 100 for Pat Lipinski, who I think this year he's been appreciated a bit more as one of the better players on the team that struggled.
Lipinski has played 43 games now at Collingwood after 56 with the Bulldogs, and he was the sub, if you remember, in the grand final.
Steele Sidebottom should be back in. He was managed, which in this case, with a lot of veterans, it's like, we're not going to say omitted, but
it's an unofficial official omission.
Yeah.
Harvey Harrison has kept up good form in the BFL, as have a couple of new additions to the list, and Lockie Sullivan, who had 9 clearances, and 2022 pick 48 Joe Richards, who, like Tyler Sellers for North and Rory Lobb, also for Footscray, has 9 goals after 2 rounds. 6 this past week.
I don't think they make too many drastic changes.
The question is, where would you put these guys? If you tried to bring in Sullivan or Richards, where would they go? Richards in particular, I mean, for this matchup in particular, and in general, you wouldn't take out a pressure guy like Bo McCreary.
And McCreary was good last week. He's not a guy who shouldn't even be remotely considered to come out.
Yeah,
I don't even know, who does Sidebottom come in for? That might end up being like your only change. Sidebottom for, well, Reef only had 4 touches last week.
I mean, that's also a place where you could make some changes in the forward line, though, because Reef has had more forward time. It's a matter of where you cast everybody else. Do you bring Lipinski a bit more downfield then?
Yeah, or McRae probably comes out.
Oh, yeah, that's another.
So Frey comes out, and then the question is, do you take anyone else out? I think I would keep Crisp in the sub role because he was so good at it.
Yeah, I would say maybe have Lockie Sullivan come in for Finn McRae.
And maybe you take McGinnis out. So maybe 2 changes.
Yeah. Pies are favored by just under 4 goals at this time, 23.5. This will be a double up. It has to be. You got to put this at the G for one of these games this year. Usually it will be both. That's in round 19. And hopefully round 19 delivers like the past couple have.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty appropriate line. Just my thing for Hawthorn, these last 2 weeks have been very different types of frustration for them. Really all 3 games, one where they ran out of gas, one where they had this weird structure trying to move in the back that never worked at all, and then one where they just had way too many self-inflicted mistakes. So it's got to be frustrating because they've had different things prove to be their undoing each week.
Have you seen their quarter breakdown, by the way? They are 3-0 in second quarters. Otherwise,
I'm going to guess they are 0-9.
0-8-1. So, with all of this considered, Ethan, who is your main character?
I'm going to make an executive decision here. We cannot make the obvious pick
of Tommy Flanagan.
Yes.
That, by the way, is the man with the famed all teams should merge sign and jumper.
So you cannot go with it.
The AFL is trying to promote their own jumper, but no, Tommy did it better.
Yeah,
Are you going to stick with the playing field for this one, like the actual playing group?
Oh, no.
You know what? I know who the main character won't be. The guy who invaded the Oval Friday night round 2. He received a lifetime ban.
What does BANNED mean?
With potential for review in 5 years.
So basically like a life sentence with parole.
Yes, exactly.
Banned, but I don't have a guitar or drums.
Jack Ginnivan is also way too obvious of a pick. So I will not be taking him either. We are going to be fascinated this week by a Michael Jackson lookalike in the crowd at one of the games.
Your picks are so random. This is one of the cases where, yes, random equals funny. It's very selective where that's the case.
And I'm picking Michael Jackson because there are a lot of different people who could look like Michael Jackson.
Do I have to play the fucking song?
Which song? I was thinking of the clip from Hot Tub Time Machine, a movie I've never seen, but I've seen that, they showed the ad a billion times when it was coming out. And instead of asking, what year is this or whatever, they ask instead,
what color is Michael Jackson?
Yeah. So, it could be a black person. It could be a white person. It could be anything.
I was thinking of the Slow Jams reference where Ye says she got a light-skinned friend, looked like Michael Jackson, got a dark-skinned friend, looked like Michael Jackson.
Yeah, that works too. So that's why I am going with, we're going to have a fan who looks like Michael Jackson. Because again, Jack Ginnivan, way too obvious.
I would also put Harrison Petty as way too obvious, given the trade talk around him. And I mentioned Cade Chandler last week as being a potential one, so I'm not going to mention him, but I feel like there's going to just be a South Australian player who just goes the fuck off this week. And because he was quiet last week, I think this is just the right time, and he's against an opponent where he can score a lot. Will Hayward, you're up.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode. You know the drill. We are on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram at American Spuddy. I am on Twitter at Castle Media.
I am at Benjamin HK01, and Brian Harambe might want out of the room soon. He's on Instagram at cat named Brian. So if that's the case, then two things are going to exit the room soon: the cat and the cat's uncle. Bye.